The following program is a production of WMFE, Orlando, Melbourne, Daytona Beach.
Here's what's coming up on an all-new Arts Connection. I talked to Michael Winslow, man of 1,000 sound effects, star of the Police Academy movies, and now Central Florida resident. Then our reporter Kristen Kenney gets all revved up.
It's art in the fast lane, and just looking at it, you can see why.
She'll be meeting the man behind these amazing custom paint jobs, plus saving a disappearing art form.
The materials are evaporating. The manufacturers simply aren't making papers and all the other things you need to do that job, but it's doable.
Award-winning photographer Tim Kelly tells us why he's devoting a year to black and white photography. All that and more just ahead on The Arts Connection.
The Arts Connection is made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and by contributions to WMFE from viewers like you. Thank you.
Hello and welcome to The Arts Connection, your program about all things creative here in Central Florida. I'm Secily Wilson, and this week we're coming to you from the Orlando Museum of Art, where we're going to check out a new exhibit by sculptor Thurman Statham. It's called Stories of the New World and is a combination of glass, mirrors, video, you name it. It's been created especially for the museum, and later on we'll talk to Statham to find out how he was inspired by the journeys of Ponce de Leon. But before that, of all the different artists we've met here on The Arts Connection, we truly have a first for you this week. The man you're about to meet describes himself as a voice instrumentalist. Now, what does that mean? You're about to find out. Just sniff around and listen closely. You might be able to find out where these sounds are coming from. You may be surprised to know they're all coming from this man, Michael Winslow.
It begins, of course, with the first violin.
Yes, he's the guy from the Geico commercial.
Miles from home. So I called Geico. And in less than 10 business hours, I got a check for a new car.
And best known as Officer Larvell Jones in all 7 Police Academy movies.
What are you in for? I'll show you.
Winslow, a Winter Springs resident, sat down with me to tell me how he does it. You created an art form with what you do.
Yeah, I'm glad it became an art form. That whole beatbox thing was just something that I just did, and then along comes Police Academy 1, which is 1983, 84, you know, and it was the first time a beatbox was ever seen in a national format of any kind.
Sit and state it.
And he's been doing it literally since he was a babe.
Well, my mom always said that one day, you know, after, you know, I was in the crib and she was, you know, doing things in the house. She kept hearing all these voices because, you know, she turned the TV down, but she was hearing something else and couldn't figure out what is there some kind of noises in this house. It was me.
Growing up as a military brat, the son of a Tuskegee airman, Winslow was always the new kid on the block, so he used his special talents to make new friends or not.
Sometimes the bigger kids, you know, beat you up to shut up, and the other ones beat you up to make you make the noises. Like in class, you know, they say, "If you don't do it, Winslow." Oh no, not that again.
He's always been able to hear things and spit them back out. And he's always had a lot of fun making people laugh all around the world.
The sound seems to have no language barrier, so I find a way to talk to everybody. And even if not through sound, then the vibrations will work too.
Every nuance, every subtle action sounds like the real thing. Everything from galloping horses to a slot machine. There are more than 10,000 noises he can imitate, give or take a few. His unique ability to create layers of sound has earned him a place in Hollywood. Winslow calls it an accident of fate.
I got lucky. I was opening for Count Basie and his orchestra. I had this one day gig to do these 2 shows. It was Count Basie and his orchestra and in Long Beach. And I was the opening act, so I ended up doing a lot of fusion jazz noises. It turns out the producer and director of Academy were jazz fanatics. They just happened to love Count Basie because they just happened to come to my show.
And they wrote you in?
Yeah, wrote me into the picture. Thanks to Count Basie.
After Academy, other doors of opportunity began to open. Winslow appeared in Mel Brooks' Spaceballs, 2 Cheech and Chong movies. He even lent his voice to Gremlins, and most recently took a lead role in National Lampoon's Robo-Doc, filmed right here in Orlando.
Hasta la bye-bye. Game over.
I played Dr. Murphy, and I hope Eddie ain't gonna be mad about that. It's just a very strange picture. It's a medical comedy that's really sick. At least that's how it's described. Kind of like Animal House in a hospital.
Central Florida is also where Winslow calls home. He left Hollywood in 1993 and moved his family here for what he calls a better environment. So I had to ask the master of vocal gymnastics, what was the first sound you ever made? What's the easiest to do?
My lord.
What's the hardest?
The hard stuff for me is the instrument, is the musical stuff, because it's got to be everything has to. I have to hear tone.
It's an art Winslow still works at. When he's not making movies, he tours his stand-up act.
And now smooth jazz, Mr. Stevie Wonder.
It's been said laughter is the best medicine, and Dr. Winslow is giving out plenty of doses.
See you around, Monsignor.
Dr. Monsignor.
It's been a great gift, and I have to appreciate the fact that I have what I have. Everybody has something that they call their own, and this is what I like to do.
So if you think you've heard the last of Michael Winslow, think again. Well, as I said, we're here at the Orlando Museum of Art, which is playing host to a new exhibit by famed and celebrated glass sculptor Thurman Statham. It's called Stories of the New World, and it spans 6,000 square feet with a dazzling display of light and color and 13 tons of glass. And the artist himself is joining me now, Thurman Statham. And Thurman, thank you for sharing your exhibit with us. It's beautiful.
Thank you very much.
So Thurman, the title of the exhibit is Stories of the New World, based on Ponce de Leon's 16th century search for the Fountain of Youth. Why this is an inspiration?
There's four or five Fountain of Youth in Florida, and I'm thinking, what does all this mean? Why is this search so important? Was it a real search? And in investigating it, it seemed to have political parallels to our government in Washington in terms of what his intent was, what he was doing for the king. But the one thing I noticed, regardless of what their intent was that the world changed with the discovery of the New World. And people had dreams and aspirations that manifested itself. And in many ways, I saw this search as a metaphor for discovery, for exploration. You know, all of a sudden there's not an existing social structure. All of a sudden, instead of being a serf in England, you can be anything.
Well, it's more than 24 pieces of work. It's almost like a maze of sorts going through.
Well, I wanted the room to sort of feel like, to have parallels physically, metaphorically, in terms of searching for things. And there's sort of a large mirror structure here that parallels almost as if you were going through mangroves. And you know, so yeah, in a sense, I think discovery is a big part of my art. And I do want people to discover things.
Now, just describing it as glass sculptures really doesn't do it justice, because there's more than just glass.
There's paint. I'm a painter. Essentially, this is a walk-through sculpture painting. And it's almost as if when you come in the door, you are in a 3D painting. And most of the glass is sandblasted. There's pigment applications, there's metal applications, there's found objects that are incorporated into it. I just used sort of basic hardware store techniques of glass cutting and using silicone that people use in their houses to construct this work.
So is this the largest installation that you've done? And if so, how long did it take you to get it up and running?
It's the most comprehensive. I've actually been afforded the chance to work in larger spaces, but not conceptually as comprehensive and not as thorough in the fabrication. The show was about 9 months from actual implementation, and the conceptual work was about 1.25 years.
Now, your work is seen all over the world, and this is sort of a homecoming for you, because this is home for you.
That's correct.
What does it feel like to be home again?
It's very grounding. I mean, a big part of the work is about, and one of the gifts of the work is being able to visit family, being able to sort of redefine what home is here.
You've also been working with some artists, young artists in Eatonville. Tell us about that collaboration with the Zora Neale Hurston Festival.
We collaborated with our education department here at OMA, at the Orlando Art Museum, and the educational department at the Zora Neale Hurston. We were all wanting to work together. We weren't really sure, so they have this festival, so we thought, well, let me work with the kids, you know, with them.
And you've collaborated with something called the Glass House.
Yeah, and about 80 children did a painting on a glass box that was about 20 inches square, which together forms a house that you walk through. That's about 8.5 feet high by 10 by 7 feet. So it's a pretty large structure.
Now, just before we go, I've got to ask, Dale Chihuly, one of your mentors?
That's correct. He's one of several, but I'm just so delighted that he, you know, when I first met him, I think I was 18 years old, and you know, I was just starting college. I meet the guy. The next thing you know, I'm graduating. The guy is one of the most empowering teachers I've ever worked with.
With so many mirrors around, are you superstitious, and have you broken any glass?
Actually, not as much as what you might think, you know. But I think the fragility of it, the hardness of it, the translucency of it, you know, I like the work to feel like a memory, and glass seemed to be an appropriate canvas for that.
Well, certainly an exciting exhibit here. Thank you so much, Thurman, for sharing it with us.
You're welcome.
Well, if you want to see more of Stories of the New World, it's here through May 10th. Details are at our website, WMFE.org/arts. Well, still ahead on The Arts Connection, we meet award-winning photographer Tim Kelly.
Would I be doing the same thing the same way even if it wasn't financially rewarding? And my answer is yes, I would change nothing.
He tells us why he's devoting the next year to preserving the art of black and white photography. But before that, we're leaving the peace and tranquility of the Orlando Museum of Art to hit the road for a much noisier but no less artistic form of expression. Kristen Kenney hops into the saddle to check out some motorized masterpieces.
It's great. You know, I love what I do.
Meet Chris Cruz, the owner of Chris Cruz Artistry and the artist behind this rideable art.
You know, I'm just a create as I go, you know, let it flow.
Here in his DeLand workshop, Cruz designs custom paint jobs for anything that moves, whether it's cars, trucks, boats, or even planes. But he's best known for his airbrush work on motorcycles, an artistic passion that has its roots in the boyhood rush he got from two-wheeled speed. As a high school student, Cruz became a motocross champion, winning state and national competitions. But when he wasn't riding the tracks, he was in his dad's bike shop.
I was fiddling with, you know, doing airbrushing and painting portraits on canvas.
And before he knew it, he made a career combining his love for creativity with his need for speed.
It's something that just kind of metamorphosized together.
Today, Cruz is one of few artists who still paints old school.
It's hand-painted images and graphics like you see here that are taking a backseat to computer graphics. But as Cruz says, he's determined to continue this hand-painting tradition.
We maintain that hand-painted look on just about everything we do here. That's really my thing. It's just freehand airbrushing, freehand pinstriping, original designs and graphics. People seek my work out, and I'm glad that, in this day and age, I still stay fairly busy.
Every day, customers ranging from professional racers to just pure bike lovers call on Cruz to detail their rides with his famous hand-painted portraits, graphics, and pinstripes.
The owner of this motorcycle just kind of let me loose, so I have to think of something that's pretty cool, pretty trendy, and actually has a little bit of a badass flair, because it's a Harley. It's actually going to be very, quite masculine design. That's why it's got the skulls on it.
Of course, skulls and naked women are his biggest request, but it doesn't stop there.
A lot of people that, a lot of guys that have their wives, painted on their motorcycles, and we would do like a fantasy scene, where they're like maybe in, dressed like a warrior, or like, or something like in riding a dragon or something, and we would put the wife or girlfriend's face on the lady warrior.
Each bike has a lot to do with the personality of its owner. Just ask bike aficionado Robert Wilkinson.
Yeah, a lot of my personality, actually. I like skulls and dragons and women, and I actually got the ideas to do the taillights from one of the Harry Potter shows that had one of the dragons up in the rafters, and me and my granddaughter watching it, and I said, well, that'd make a cool taillight. This actually is my brake light taillight, so you can see it lights up when you hit the brakes.
Wilkinson has been working for Cruz for 20 years, but in his spare time, he's built himself some nice rides.
This one I built from scratch. Started with a frame and worked my way up, and it's gone through a couple changes. And this one here was actually a Daytona police bike in '03, and I bought it in '04.
He's probably one of my biggest fans and customers, and we just work well together. We're kind of like the odd couple, I'm the clean-cut guy, and he's the badass biker dude.
Opposites do seem to work for Cruz and Wilkinson. This March, they take the art of good and evil on the road for an exhibit at the Museum of Florida Art in DeLand.
This motorcycle right here behind me is going to be one of our debut custom-painted motorcycles, and we've been on this motorcycle for almost a year now. The evil side represents warm colors, some hot tones, and it's the bad side. The good side has lots of cooler colors, blues and ice colors, and of course it represents the lady warriors that are on there represent the good and evil also.
And for Cruz, it's the finished product that he finds most rewarding.
It's a fun job. It's very rewarding, especially after we see our finished products on the road. That's probably the best part, and also dealing with the people. And when they're happy, we're happy.
And Chris's custom creations are on show from the end of next month as part of Art on the Road of Good and Evil, an exhibition to tie in with Bike Week at the Museum of Florida Art in DeLand. For more details, check out our website. Next, we get up close and personal with a master of the photographic art form. Tim Kelly is an award-winning portrait artist based right here in Central Florida, and I paid him a visit to meet the man behind the lens. Tim Kelly spends his day doing what he loves.
I mean, that's what makes it a wonderful life for me, but the fact that I'm actually doing what I love every single day of the week.
Kelly is a portrait artist, not to be confused with a photographer.
Perfect, that's it. I don't want to be considered a photographer, really, because I, again, would create the works that I do with paint or pencil, charcoal, anything, because that's the roots I came from. I mean, I studied art.
Kelly's paintbrush is his camera lens.
Beautiful.
His canvas is the human body. And his subject today is yours truly.
There you go, but you're good. And then your nose will be this way, so we get a little bit, I want to have life in both eyes. I do people, that's all I do, that actually have studied art and have studied faces and figures and have really invested their lives in understanding the human form and how to make it more beautiful. So that would be posing, and lighting, of which I'm a master at both.
This master has won every award you could think of.
The master's degree, craftsman degree, fellowship degree, lifetime awards from everybody. I like my fellows to know that this old guy still has it.
While he's not picking up awards, Tim's day job is crafting portraits here at his Lake Mary studio. But that's about to change as Kelly is dedicating a year of his life to preserving the art of black and white photography. It's how he learned his art form back in the day.
Black and white was all we had available. I mean, color existed, but you could in no wise ever develop and print your own back then. Those of us that were in the trade or in the hobby back then went to great lengths to make their own prints in dark rooms with wet trays and tongs and all kinds of things.
Well, they don't do it like that anymore, which is why it's important for Kelly to preserve this dying art form.
Also, the materials are evaporating. The manufacturers simply aren't making papers and all the other things you need to do that job, but it's doable. Good.
Kelly considers the year of black and white portraits as his legacy project, which will be released later this year in a book, something he wants to pass on to emerging artists in the business.
I learned the old school way. I was trained as a 12, 13, 15-year-old person in a full-time big studio by masters that were masters in the 40s, 50s, and 60s. And therefore, the things they taught me cannot be found today. The techniques and the quality control that was learned then is not taught anymore. It's like, oh, we'll fix it in Photoshop.
It's his attention to detail that has clients coming back generation after generation.
He started coming in and doing individual portraits on his own will with each and every new addition to the family, grandchild and great-grandchild.
Kelly considers that priceless personal art that he wouldn't trade for the world.
Would I be doing the same thing the same way even if it wasn't financially rewarding? And my answer is yes, I would change nothing.
I love his work. He made me look amazing. Now we have a link to Tim Kelly's website where you can see more of his work and get his free downloads of top tips for photographers. It's all at WMFE.org/arts. Well, that's all the time we have this week for the program here at Thurman Stadium's exhibit inside the Orlando Museum of Art. We certainly hope you have enjoyed the show. Don't forget, we're on the air every weekday on your radio with the Arts Connection Minute, our daily events guide on WMFE 90.7 FM at 9:59 a.m. And there's the Arts Connection website with more information about all the stories you've just seen and our video archive, all at WMFE.org/arts. And thanks for watching. Stay tuned for a sneak peek of what we have in store for you next week. Until then, we'll see you. Bye. Next time on the Arts Connection, see how groups across Central Florida are encouraging kids to explore culture and creativity. From the museum with special exhibits for families.
We really want kids to start feeling comfortable and have fun in an art museum so they'll keep coming back.
To the dance teacher helping at-risk youth.
I brought something to a child that they can enjoy, that they can love. And that makes me feel good.
See all that and more Thursday night at 8 on WMFE-TV.